Mm. Hello and welcome back to the Millennial Minute. This episode is called "It's Okay to Be an Idealist." Um, I've noticed that when people talk about like inequality or like injustice, like in our time period, one of the most common themes amongst people, even the ones that desire change, is like, well, it's not perfect, but it could be worse. And therefore, like, you need to be thankful for what you have. And in a way, they're kind of implying that like it's okay to not change anything. And let me tell you, like I kind of I kind of hate that statement. Um, and here's why. Like I want to tell people, like it's okay to be an idealist, because there's a very clear difference between like appreciating what you have and like truly like appreciating it, and then working towards something better. Like they're not the same thing. Like they're two completely different things that you're doing. Like think about it this way. Imagine you're like a frog stuck in a jar of pudding. Um, like if you settle there, you can surely eat pudding until you die. But like if you fight your way outside of that jar, then like your possibilities are endless. I mean, who's to say what would happen afterwards? Obviously there's hazards outside of the jar, but at least like you're opening yourself up to the possibility of something better. And then in theory, you can eat whatever you want at that point as long as you can find it. Or like take another example. Say like you participate in a talent show in front of the whole school, and there's like 10 kids. And you do the talent show, and then when it's over, you think to yourself, like in your head, you're like, I was probably the second best person in that group. So sure, like that's great. Like straight up, like you can talk about that because you're pretty close to first. It's not bad. But if you didn't come into that talent show, like into that situation, like wanting first place, then it doesn't really matter like what position you got. You are wasting your time in that like experience in general. I mean, nobody goes in and says, oh, I want to be like fifth, I want to just be like good enough, so that nobody can say, oh, like that was embarrassing. Like you want to be first, and if you don't get there, then like at least you tried your best. I mean, it's not like the worst thing in the world, but any opportunity that you're in personally, standing there, that's your opportunity to do the best you can. And so even like take on the like the other side of the spectrum. Like say you're in the same talent show and you don't do that great. Like say you get like ninth. Like you're not the worst one, but you're second to worst. And like the kid who got 10th, like the only reason he got last place is because like he walked up on stage and like farted so loud or something that it like echoed across the entire auditorium, and then like as a result of that, like he was so nervous that he like threw up and ran off the stage. Like for one, I feel bad for that kid, and I hope that never happens to anybody like in general. But like as it relates to this example, like in that situation, saying like it wasn't perfect, but it was like, but you yourself were good enough, and like you wouldn't change anything. It's like saying like, at least I didn't crap my pants in front of the whole school, so like I'm good with that. And it's kind of like I mean, yeah, of course, like it definitely could have been worse than what it was for you. But that's not really like a place to set your bar, And if that kid never did what he did, then you would have been the worst one. You would have been last place. And I mean, nobody wants to go into an opportunity and settle for last place. So that's it's kind of just the way it is. I mean, there's all kind of examples of it. Like say for instance, a baby learns how to crawl, and that's like one step in them, getting more freedom. Like they can be totally appreciative of that, because prior to them being able to crawl, like they had zero freedom at all. Like they couldn't go anywhere without the help of somebody else. And now they're independent to go other places that they couldn't go before. So sure, that's life changing, the like newfound freedom. But obviously, like you look at human beings, like we don't stop there. Like once we learn how to crawl, like it's almost like we just forget about that like super fast, and we're right on, fighting to stand up and walk. Because that's just kind of human nature, to try to shoot for things that are better. And it doesn't mean that you hate what you did before, like it's the worst thing ever. But you're kind of being an idealist, as of the fact that if you if you can walk, you can get somewhere a lot further, a lot easier. You know, so to kind of relate this back to like social justice, and you know, or not even just you know, like when people talk about things that they don't feel satisfied with, maybe like in society, yeah, like injustice or, you know, social injustice or whatever, like, you know, like good Americans complain about shit, you know, like look at it from like the start of America. Americans complained about religious oppression, in another country, you know, like England, like where they came from, and then eventually like they went through the effort of sailing to an entire another continent just because like they weren't willing to settle for it anymore. I mean, like they could have just lived and said, oh, why I'll just put up with the fact that this is not what I believe in, but I'll just stick with it anyway. But they weren't willing to do that. You know, they moved to another continent just to like have their ideal views of religion. You know, or for instance, like Americans, like we're okay with paying taxes, you know, in the beginning of our like existence, but not if we weren't being represented for those taxes we were paying. And well, as if you know your history, you know, we fought a whole entire war to make that point, and then we became our own country. You know, like Americans were not satisfied with living in a society where it's acceptable to like enslave another group of people. You know, so they stood up and they fought for it and they abolished slavery. You know, because it was the right thing to do, and it cost a lot of lives of people who were idealists, who supported Abraham Lincoln and said, I'm willing to die because this is not something that I'm willing to put up with anymore. You know, or even like segregation after the fact, you know, people had to really complain and do something about it until they abolished it. It didn't just happen on its own. You know, I mean, and there's all kind of examples. I mean, you know, like in World War II, you know, we got kind of, I mean, we got dragged into that war, but you think about it, Americans were willing to fight that war. You know, we were like, we're not going to accept the fact that there's a dictator who exterminates people based off their like religious bloodline. So what did we do? Like, we flew over there in that dude's area of the world and we kicked his ass. Like, we could have just sat back and been like, nah, you know, we're just gonna chill, you know, this is not our problem. But we ended up being the deciding factor basically in that situation. You know, or I mean, even look at like, you know, like child labor, poor work conditions, low wages, if you want to kind of bring it down to like a less intense level, like that's labor law stuff. So like, you used to be able to be 10 years old and then work for like 2 pennies and stuff like per day, like, but people were like, that's not right, that's not fair, like we can't have a society where that's just a situation, you know. So people worked at it and complained until they formed unions and, you know, modern working conditions. So it's like, you can't just settle for stuff and say, oh, well, it's good enough, you know, like it could be worse, because anything could be worse in most cases, you know what I mean? Like anything, like, I mean, there's obviously a rock bottom in any situation, but there's a lot of things where it's pretty dang close, but it could still be worse. You know, so anyway, I can go on, but like, my point is that like, it's possible to be grateful for what you have without being afraid or even like too lazy to try to make things better. And as you can see, like, America was not built by second besters. If we were all second besters, like, we wouldn't be America. America was built by idealist people. So there's not, in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with being an idealist. Alright, anyway, thank you guys for listening, and hope to see you soon for more videos.